Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor of Diplomacy and World Affairs, Occidental College, Ambassador Derek SHEARER.
I want to welcome everybody to this session on sports and globalization. I'm going to introduce our distinguished panel in just a moment. My name is Derek SHEARER. I'm a professor of diplomacy at Occidental College here in Los Angeles. Some of you may know that President Barack Obama went to Occidental. He, in fact, came thinking that he might make our excellent basketball team. He didn't, but he went on to other achievements. And he does play basketball in the White House, although one of our panelists, Dikembe MUTOMBO, told me that they've not yet played together, but the president keeps asking him to join in his pickup games. Now, the topic of our panel today is the terrain on which sports now exists in the 21st century. It's clear that sports has gone global. Almost every country in the world, probably with just the exception of North Korea, although that might even be changing through the diplomatic efforts of Dennis Rodman, has been linked together through social media, television, and international sports events. And this is not going to change. The question is how can one make use of this globalization of sports so that sports includes more people, it's more diversified, the incredible amounts of money that come out of this globalized sports system, can they be channeled into progressive social causes? And how can individual countries use sports as part of their soft power, of their branding, of their active diplomacy? We have a particularly strong panel to look at these questions. I'll briefly introduce them. First, Jeremy AISENBERG, representing the private sector, as it were. Jeremy's vice president of Octagon, one of the leading sports marketing companies in the world. We have a former Dutch politician, former member of the Dutch parliament, Emine BOZKURT. European Parliament. And she's been very active in many issues involving race and inclusion in sports in Europe. We have the Honorable Wilfried LEMKE, who is now the head of the United Nations Organization on Sports Development and Peace. UN Secretary General Kofi Annan in 2001, recognizing the power of globalized sports, created a UN office on sports development and peace. And Wilfried, who is a talented sports executive and former politician from the state of Bremen in Germany, is now heading up that organization. Will be telling us more about what it does. We have, at the end, two examples of globalized sports stars. TETER, who is an Olympic medalist in snowboarding, one of our great winter athletes. And on her left, some of you may already know, Dikembe MUTOMBO. I'm happy to announce that in September, Dikembe will be inducted into the NBA Hall of Fame. And Dikembe has also asked me to tell you that during the question and answer period, he is under strict orders not to answer any questions about Dennis Rodman. So let's begin with a general question to the panel. How has the globalized nature of sports changed sports forever from your point of view? Jeremy, do you want to?
Sure. I think the power of sports to drive social change and good has been talked about quite a bit here the last couple of days with some amazing examples. I think what's happened in my career, and is certainly generational in nature, is the export of great coaching and great instruction. access and democratization of expertise in specific sports, where you now have, instead of having to send athletes to a certain number of countries with the capability to develop the core grassroots infrastructure that it takes to have a successful sports development program, you have that now happening at the local level, which I think is pretty powerful in fostering all of the good that we know comes from sport.
But, Emine, is there a downside to this globalization of sports? For example, in Europe, when you have a racist incident in a soccer match, and then it's televised all over the world for everybody to see, I mean, how does that play out, in your opinion?
Not only in Europe, by the way, there is racism. Yeah, that's exactly the power of sport, in the positive way, but also in the negative way. If there are racist abuses during, for instance, soccer matches, and millions of people are looking to them, then if you don't do anything, if you don't put strict rules on that, you give the message to all the people who are looking, to youth, that's okay in society to do that. And that's the negative impact of globalization, of media, of big sport events.
And Wilfried, maybe you could just tell everyone a little bit about what is the purview of the United Nations Office on Sports and Development, and how does the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and yourself see the UN playing a role in this globalized sports era?
Well, to do it very quickly, the United Nations is not focusing on the elite sports. We are looking at the grassroots level. We want to try to use sport as a tool for development and peace in different ways with different partners. Partnership is one of the Millennium Development Goals, and so it is that I have to work as a facilitator, bringing people from different areas, from marketing companies, sport companies, clubs, federations, IOC, FIFA as well, bringing them together to do good things on the grassroots level, to foster our youth and to fight for inclusion all over the world.
Now, we know the Special Olympics makes very good use of global sports ambassadors. Is there any thought to your UN office appointing global sports ambassadors from the UN?
Now, we are on our way to bring the idea of Special Olympics to all parts of the world. And I must say, we have many, many people, many countries in the world that don't think in a very positive way about sports. They are very much interested in getting gold medals wherever they are available. And politicians love it to go to the finals and to applaud their athletes. But in the same moment, they are looking, how can we change the curriculum in schools and give sport not the value or not the place in the curriculum that they really need. We have education first in all our lives, in all countries of the world. Education, most important thing. And sport is part of education. So the politicians should not think about reduce sports at school. It's very important to use the power of sport in the beginning of the child when they are 6 years starting school. It must be a fact that every child has a right for sport and physical education.
And I assume you mean, obviously, members of both sexes. Hannah is one of our great women sports athletes. Maybe you could say something about your role as a global sports celebrity, as well as an outstanding woman athlete, and also about the changing role of women in global sports.
Yeah, the last panel I was on was actually in Korea for the World Winter Games, and we were discussing how to get Special Olympics more involved with the youth and out there. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, why not get Special Olympics with X Games and have a unified sports race together with, partnered up with Olympians. So 2 years later, Special Olympics is now an X Games, and Tim Shriver and I really, worked hard in getting it in there. And it just shows the power of thought and good intention, especially for athletes like myself and my other Olympic friends of just how much power we have to make changes, and now how women have, you know, so much power that we can, you know, do what we put our minds to. And growing up in the small town of Vermont, I just, you know, I never realized how far you can take things, and if you just believe in yourself and dream out of the box, those are the dreams that usually happen. So that's just the role I play in life now, of just being an extreme sports half-pipe snowboarder, hucking myself off icy walls to win contests, but also the more important side, which is Special Olympics, and then my charity Hannah's Gold, and just how much more that means to me than just snowboarding.
Well, snowboarding is interesting because it's a sport that actually grew out of skateboarding.
Right.
And skateboarding really started right here in Los Angeles, in the city of Santa Monica, in an area called Dogtown. And it's a perfect example of a grassroots local sport suddenly, over the course of 20 or 30 years, becoming global, an Olympic sport, an Olympian like Hannah. And do you find that, like a sport like snowboarding that's relatively new, is that bringing more people around the world into sports?
I think it is, because snowboarding has now surpassed skiing, and everybody loves being out there because you're just out there with your friends and you're in nature, really appreciating life. And I think that's what draws people to, you know, snowboarding and skiing and just being in the mountains. And yeah, it's just growing and people love it. We just need a little bit more snow in California to really keep it on the up and up. But
okay. Dikembe, I know you recently visited Cuba on behalf of the NBA as an example of American sports diplomacy and NBA sports diplomacy. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that experience.
Thanks, Lance. I think it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I never thought myself that living in America, we was going to get a chance to go to Cuba very soon. So we are becoming the first NBA delegation to visit Cuba when it comes to the game of basketball. Not just to visit, also to do clinics, to do a coaching clinic, a national team clinic, youth clinic, to talk about the cultural change. I think our visit was described as a cultural bridge between the two nations. And I think it brought all of us together. It made the kids to understand that through the game of basketball, we can be unified. We can live in peace, and we can work together for one purpose goal, which is to win. Another thing was we brought more than 5 containers of basketball shoes, basketball rims, including basketball shoes, that kids in Cuba that never had shoes before, to see a young man and young boys and girls playing the game of basketball with tennis shoes. As I was telling you backstage, you see them dribbling the ball for the first time. Instead of looking at the ball where the ball is going, they all were just looking at the shoes, admiring the shoes that they was trying to say, oh my God, look how I feel. And it was very touching for me and the entire delegation.
And I also know you've been involved with the NBA expansion in China, and maybe you could just say a word about the expansion of basketball with the NBA in China, which is an incredible story as well.
Our game, I think, is growing faster than any sport in the world, because the game of basketball is just an easy game. It can be playing in your driveway, in your backyard, at any stadium, any street. As long as you have 2 people in or by yourself, you have your basketball, you can shoot. And I think that's why the game is going so fast in China. China is kind of one of the most populated countries in the world. They don't need so much spaces to play the game. As long as there's a space underneath the freeway, we can put a basketball court on and we can do it. Right now, the NBA and the Chinese government, we have gone and built more than 10,000 basketball courts. We continue to build more. Our office in China have grown more to 3,500 employees, so it continues to grow every day. We are building school now. We're building more gymnasium. When you look at China, the country is so big. Everything is developed in China. It's all on the East Coast. When you start going west of China, there's nothing. And start going on the rural area all the way close to Tibet. There's nothing. There's no school. There's no basketball court, no facility for young people to play. So the NBA trying to target those areas to try to see how can we grow our game. And I think we are very succeeding right now.
Well, I think one of the interesting things, too, about this era is that individuals, such as yourselves, when you excel at sports, you then, whether you want to be or not, become global celebrities and figures, and then you have to decide how to use that presence on a global stage. I know that the great Chinese basketball player Yao Ming, he is also a global ambassador, I believe, for Special Olympics.
Yes, but he's taller than me.
He's taller, but he's not. Is he faster than you, Dikembe?
No. He cannot catch up with me now.
But what I'd like to raise now with the panel, I mean, we've talked about a lot of positive examples of this globalization. Is there a downside to all of this that's going on? Is there too much money or too much nationalism in globalized sports? Emine?
I think it depends on why, for instance, countries are doing this kind of events. And like our colleague Mr. LEMKE also said, some countries are doing it only for the prestige. And I think that's counterproductive. They are organizing big events, but forgetting about human rights, organizing big events and jailing journalists. And actually, that's what's in the media. So that's counterproductive for the country itself and for the whole people who are very enthusiastic about sports. And I think it's positive, coming to the topic of social inclusion. For instance, to mention Qatar. Qatar has a vision, a national vision about sport. Sport is one of the priorities. And by putting the issue of social inclusion by Doha Goals Foundation so prominently on the agenda, the country is communicating social inclusion is important. And I wish that a lot of other countries were doing this, because social inclusion is something else and happens in most of the times at the local level. So that's important, and it's something else if countries are trying to only get the message across and be on in the picture with sports heroes. That's not social inclusion. It's important to get the message across, but you have also to do something, to take action, to do really something.
Right. Well, many countries do now use sports as part of their diplomacy and as part of their soft power, and are very clear about including sports as part of their brand. Certainly Qatar has a very aggressive sports diplomacy program. I know because we've been running a bit late and some people may want to be going to lunch, that we want to have time for questions. So I want to open it up a little bit to questions in the audience. And we have mics and we have people there. Maybe right down here, number 7. Can you come up to someone?
Good afternoon. My name is Paige and I am a student ambassador from the University of Central Florida. So you guys were just talking about the positives and negatives of globalization. And many sporting events such as the Olympics and the World Cup have the media attention and the global reach to shed light on underdeveloped countries and social injustices. Yet when the games end, the awareness and the passion for change typically diminishes. So how can we use these major international events to create a lasting change as opposed to a short-term awareness?
That's a very good question. Well,
Yeah.
Emine, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very important question. And what I would think, what could be helpful, you have a lot of bids for Olympic Games, bids for World Championships, whatever, regional championships. And it is good if you put that issue of social inclusion more prominently on the agenda. Make it part of a bid. What is the country's track record? What is a country wanting to do in the near future, accompanying the organization of the games? I think that would really help. So if the International Olympic Committee or the FIFA or the FIBA, whatever, are organizing their competitions, they should do that. And that would really make, that can really make a big change.
Can I add it?
Dikembe?
I'll give an example like of Democratic Republic of Congo. It was the country that was never represented in a Special Olympic platform for so many generations. This year alone, we're becoming the first country to be added in a Special Olympic. All of that happened because of my movement and what I stand for and what I believe. I went to the country, I convinced the government that we need to have a Special Olympic. Congo was never represented. They couldn't even fund the kids because all those kids have been hiding in the houses, have been pushing away to the churches. Parents continue to abandon any kids with intellectual disability. And through the sport, especially we as an athlete, I think we are changing this generation. We are changing the world we are living in. And I forced the government to allow me to take the athletes for the first time, to pay for their fee, their traveling, the cost, the uniform, for them to come here. Those what we need to do, we as an athlete. I know that we're becoming a target in a society, but I think we are changing the world. We are changing the world, and we will continue to do that maybe through the next generation.
And I also think it's, it's incumbent upon countries and cities when they take on the hosting of these mega events like a World Cup or Olympics to make sure that the legacy lives on. Los Angeles, when it did the 1984 Olympics, did a really good job, and they set up a fund. And that fund still has money today. It contributes to the Special Olympics, contributes to arts and culture, all the way going back to the 84 Olympics. So there's a way you can do these mega sporting events right and build a legacy. Other questions over there? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Jeff, and I'm a youth ambassador with the University of Louisville. And I'm really glad you talked about legacies and things like that. A bit of news just came down about an hour ago that Boston 2024 is pulling their Olympics bid because they don't want to be on the hook for the financial obligations with the personal guarantee. And so we all know the power of sport to do fantastic things. But what can we do about reining in the cost of those mega events so that developing nations that want to use this as a springboard to show how great they are in the global stage, but not cripple their future with so much debt, and maybe make the money go to more worthy causes like you folks were talking about with the inclusion in other programs. And I just wanted to hear the panel's answer, so thank you.
Okay. That was the question about controlling the cost in this bidding for mega events. Wilfried?
This is a very important question for the future of big global events. Sometimes we can see that, for example, China, we just mentioned China, they hosted the Youth Olympic Games, and they make a show, an opening ceremony that was unbelievable. That was on this top level of Olympic Games. And so I said, my gosh, what is the meaning of that? Who else in the future will be a competitor with that? They'd say, no, sorry, this is too big. This costs millions and millions, and people work for over years to prepare this. So absolutely right what you said, but I can answer this. If you follow the IOC in their program for the next years, they said we must come down from the big, expansive things. And just these days in Kuala Lumpur, they will decide about Winter Games, and there are only 2 bidding cities, Almaty and Beijing, for Winter Games. And so that is a big problem. They realize that it's a problem, and I really hope that they we're looking in the future for more sustainability so that every bidding city knows when we get the Olympic Games or maybe other big events, we can use these stadiums for the future and not seeing that they are white elephants somewhere. This is very important, and so the question is really very important for IOC and all the other big players.
Just putting on my professor's hat for a moment, let me mention to the student who asked the question, but any other student ambassadors, there is a wonderful book out called Circus Maximus, The Economics of Mega Sporting Events by an economist, the leading sports economist in America named Andrew Zimbalist. And he looks at these very questions and then also looks at cities like Barcelona that did it right and did it with a legacy, and looks at examples where they did it wrong. So I commend that to you. Another question right down here.
Hi, my name is David Carlson from the University of Michigan. I was wondering, and this is just a question for the two athletes, if you've ever been in a position where you were seen as more of an activist toward a movement as opposed to an ambassador for your game in any world setting, and how have you dealt with that?
Hannah, Dikembe?
Wait, what?
The question was, as an athlete, were you seen as being more political than just spokesman for your sport?
Yeah, for me that was important. I didn't want to be just the snowboard girl who goes to the Olympics and wins medals and does all that. I wanted to have more substance and be more of an example for the youth and all my fans who looked up to me as somebody who's trying to help out in the world and make changes and be more than just an extreme athlete. And that was my motivation going into my first Olympics. I was like, in my mindset, hey, if I'm gonna make it big, like I want to do something to change the world. And that was just the force behind snowboarding for me. And it just adds so much more dimension to sports and being that role model. So it's all about the youth and connecting with them and showing them that there's a lot more to life than sports and yeah. So.
And Hannah, also, how about being an elite woman athlete? Does that translate into other issues involving women in sports or women in society for you?
Elite women? Yes, I mean, it's powerful to be in a position, snowboarding is a very male-dominated sport, so for me to be a part of that and show that women are just as extreme and can get just down and dirty as boys can, that was just, I was really motivated to be one of the first, extreme women in halfpipe snowboarding. So, yeah, it was definitely motivating to.
I won't put you on the spot and ask if you're going to organize women snowboarders for Mrs. Clinton.
Why not?
Dikembe?
I would say that for you to stand for any cause, to make sure that that cause succeed, I think you have to becoming an activist, especially when you're a great athlete or professional like some of us. You have to becoming very active, and you need to put your 100%. You might not have a chance to put a lot of money or your resources, but your energy and your voice can mean a lot.
And Jeremy, maybe you'd want to comment because, I mean, your company manages and works with elite athletes, and what do you tell them about their social responsibility?
I think it very much comes from within. I don't think we have a high-profile client that doesn't get to the point in their career where they are grateful for what their sport that they enjoy and love and have been driven to do because of their passion for it since childhood. They get to the point where they're very grateful and want to give back and want to have the opportunity to leave a legacy and to make a difference in someone's life the way that the sport made a difference in their lives. So, I think we have the resources and tools to help our clients do that.
But do you counsel them very specifically or say we have role models like Dikembe or Hannah?
It's very personal, right? It really comes down to what the athlete is passionate about and what's important to them and what might have happened through their life's experiences that has led them to want to do something specific. Michael Phelps has obviously created an incredible platform around water safety. Jimmy Johnson, the NASCAR driver, has created an incredible platform around childhood education and is growing driver safety awareness. So there's generally some specificity related to their experiences that that drives the way. But most successful professional athletes get to a point in their careers where the legacy and giving back is very, very important to them, as evidenced by what Hannah and Dikembe are doing.
We have a question in the back.
Hi, I'm Sean Ralph from University of Colorado, Denver. So huge Nuggets fan. So hi, Dikembe. You mentioned human rights influencing sports and vice versa, and how aggressive the Doha and Qatari sports platforms have been. Has anyone really addressed the human rights issues in Qatar with the 4,000 migrant deaths with the building of their football stadiums? Or, I mean, how, personally, when can it be too aggressive of a campaign, and when do Human Rights Act really get trampled over?
Wilfried?
Yeah, I think many people were very much surprised when FIFA made the decision to elect Qatar as a host. But I think the idea behind, I was also surprised, the idea behind was to bring this huge, very huge World Cup to a place where it's never had been before, and where people should be involved in these wonderful sports. And this is one big chance. But coming up to your question, human rights question in Qatar is a big problem, without any discussion. But the positive side is we can show together that sport has a power to change society. And we are in direct communication with many people involved in Qatar to do step by step a change of society. And I'm totally convinced if this is a successful thing, then it's wonderful, also surprising, the situation that FIFA gave this big event to Qatar. And please let us try our very best to change the situation. The situation is bad. I've seen it several times, and we have to change it together and not fighting against or talking about boycotting things. Boycott has nothing to do with sports. We should work on building friendship and respect with each other. And we have different cultures, but we have to respect different cultures. But we have to fight for human rights all over the world, not only in Qatar and the Middle East.
Emine?
The situation in Qatar has also been a discussion in the European Parliament several times when I still was in the European Parliament. And what I want to say is actually the same like Mr. LEMKE said. This can be a driver of change. This can be a very, very good opportunity to change something. And by changing a situation, it's a very, very powerful message. And that's what I earlier said. If you make this part of the curriculum of organizing a big event, I think it really can add something to the world.
And I would just add, sport has an incredible power to bring spotlight, to your point, on some of these injustices. There's some good examples in golf. Shoal Creek is a famous golf club in Alabama that did not allow African-American members. The PGA of America had scheduled a golf tournament there, and there was outrage that there was not an open door policy, and in fact over time that was PGA canceled the event and the policy was changed. I think Augusta National in the same vein, all of the protests for the lack of female membership ultimately led to female members at Augusta National. So the sport has an incredible opportunity to shine a light on these injustices.
Yeah, that is, this is part of the perils and the promise of globalization, because now when you host an event like this, the whole world is watching, and you get coverage, and so the good and the bad of your particular country or of the individuals of your golf club are no longer hidden from the world. And so then those issues have to be addressed, and part of the challenge is then to use the opportunity to make change, as people on the panel suggested. So again, I think it's all part of this new terrain we find ourselves in this globalized world, but it does offer incredible promise for raising issues of progressive change everywhere and using sport as part of it.
Hi, my name is Anok Palkarthi. I work with the Giving Back Fund, and I'm currently interning at the Giving Back Fund, and I'm from UConn. So I just wanted to ask, as sports gain a larger audience through globalization, the impact on athletes, on communities obviously grow as well. But not every athlete is successful, and many of their foundations, I've found out through my research and work, actually fail. So I wanted to ask, as globalization becomes or sort of increases in the sports world, what do you think the key difference between this idea of giving back is? What do you think the difference is between that being an idea and actually becoming a reality? Thank you.
I can take it now.
Dikembe?
When you talk about giving back as an athlete, you can give a little bit of portion of your money to the cause. And then you have to be engaged to that cause, to what you believe and what you stand for. What I've seen through my career, playing in the NBA and after leaving the game, that so many guys want to start a foundation, but they don't want to be part of it. So they will go and hire their brother, their sister, or their cousin, or daddy, or mommy to run the foundation, and they don't even never stop in the office even once. They just want to show up when there's a game. They are not engaged. That's why their foundation are failing. We see that even in the NBA, where players' foundations closing the door almost every day, like the rain was falling from the sky. It's a big issue. I'm glad that you brought it up today. But I always advise any players, like I see with my friend Yao Ming is doing in China, he's very engaged, he's going around. You will not succeed with your foundation by thinking that, oh, I'm going to do this for you, YMCA by myself. I'm going to give $10 million, but you're not trying to reach the partner. You need partners. Anything you're trying to do in this world as an athlete, I don't care how successful you are, you need partners. I would have not built that $30 million hospital in Congo if I didn't partner with the UN, UNICEF, bunch of partners around the world, Pfizer, all of those major companies to help me get this hospital going. You need partners, and that's why you see so many guys are failing. And I work with the organization Giving Fund a lot with Mark, who helped me from the beginning to understand what it's like succeeding.
I think it's a perfect moment to end on. I want to thank everybody, but especially our distinguished panel, because I think we've touched on a lot of very interesting and complicated issues. We know there are no absolute or right answers, but we do know, as Dikembe said, partnership and diplomacy go hand in hand. So I want to thank our panel. Thank you very much. You now have our permission to go to lunch.